people, I'll say, draw your attention inwards, or, feel this, feel that, kind of give some more deepening, settling in cues that I didn't today. These were more setup cues. And then when I flowed the other side, I wanted to have a different set of cues. So
I thought it was really good for the standing poses, what you said for Warrior 2. And there was just one thing I missed, but it was me probably, when you went into Warrior 3 from Eagle. But it was, obviously, like, I'm not, like, perfect with all my listening, my auditory.
2 o 3 veces. Enraizamos los esquiones en la tierra. Alargamos la columna. Ponemos las manos en la tierra hacia adelante. Nos doblamos hacia adelante. Alargamos la columna y respiramos. Regresamos al centro. Colocamos la mano izquierda en la rodilla derecha. Colocamos la mano derecha hacia abajo en la tierra. Alargamos y giramos la columna a la izquierda. Respiramos y giramos más, si es posible. Regresamos al centro. Respiramos. Repetimos al otro lado con la mano derecha en la rodilla izquierda y la otra mano detrás del cuerpo. Inhalamos, inhalar, respirar, y si es posible, giramos un poco más. Regresamos al centro. Traemos la mano izquierda en la tierra hacia el lado. Subimos la mano derecha. Alargamos la columna al lado al izquierdo. Respiramos. Regresamos al centro. Ahora repetimos al otro lado. La mano derecha al lado, la mano izquierda. Ahora respiremos. Y regresamos al centro. Venimos a nuestras rodillas.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
How did you all get on?
I We're awesome. I enjoyed both of it. And I must say the simpler language made me enjoy teaching better.
That's good. Yeah, I think when it gets easier, and you feel like you're on top of things and not kind of struggling to keep up. It's a lot more of a pleasant experience. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So, I was listening in on your practices, and I just have a couple of just a couple of different things that I'd like to share with you before we move on. So the first thing is continuing to work on your pronunciation. So remember, all the way back to when we began our course together, we had a look at making vowels a little bit harsher and consonants a little bit softer, and especially thinking about the consonant R, okay? So R is something that in Colombian Spanish is r, r. You put the tip of your tongue against the top of your palate and you kind of flick it forward. R, 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 r. In American English, you bring the tongue further back, R. The tongue is more curled and it's a slightly more kind of nasal sound, R, right? So the tendency for some American speakers is to continue making that sound, nuestro, para, yeah? And that's an immediate giveaway for most Spanish speakers that you're a foreigner and you're probably from the United States. So it's really worth working and practicing your R's, para. So again, it's not para, it's a. A is a strong, hard sound. Para. And the R, you almost don't hear it. Para. Now, the other thing is separate your vowels out. Nuestro. Yeah? Again, ue, nuestro. Yeah? So let's practice those two sounds together. I'm going to say it and then you can repeat it. Nuestro.
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 Para. Good. Okay. Now, next. When we've got the I-O-N, C-I-O-N ending, sion, yeah? So, let's think about how we pronounce this word, vowel by vowel. E, for it not e, but E, invitación. Okay? So let's do that syllable by syllable together. So follow me. E, invitación. Invitación. Invitación.
Invitación.
Good, invitación. The final thing is the G. This is often problematic for foreign speakers because we're not very sure about how to pronounce G-I-R. So I hear a lot of giramos. I'm not sure if that's because people have learned Italian or if that's French or where it comes from. But a G followed by an I in this context is an H sound. Giramos. You can make a kind of a k noise if you want. In Spain, the GI is more of a giramos. But of course, because we're speaking Latin American style Spanish, or at least I am, it's giramos. So let's practice. Giramos. Good.
Yeah.
Much nicer. Any questions?
Invitación.
I mean, my recommendation is just, again, if you're joining Andrea, if you're joining Kelly for their classes, listen to how they speak. Andrea's got a very Colombian accent. Kelly's much more of a Venezuelan accent. But they're both really nice to listen to in that respect. Okay. Right. So I want you to help me with the following phrase. Palmas al ojo tercero. Oop. Where's the issue here?
You need a verb.
Well, yes, technically you do need a verb, although sometimes, just as in English, they omit the verb in Spanish. So that's not the main problem.
Well, we don't really want to bring our palm to our third eye like that, right? So we want to juntamos las palmas y vamos a los pulgares.
That could be. Yeah, I mean, although if you joined your palms above the head and then you just wanted to say lower the palms to the third eye.
Okay.
Again, not quite the thing. So here's the thing. Normally, when we're talking about the third eye, we actually place the word for third before eye, and we drop the O. So it's el tercer ojo. Why do we drop the O? So we don't have a vowel clash, because it would sound really odd saying tercero ojo, yeah? So the most common thing is to say palmas al tercer ojo, or pulgares al tercer ojo, or whatever, you know.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, this verb again, alcanzamos. What does alcanzar mean in Spanish?
Means to reach.
In
Well,
what
with your
sense?
hand. Your hand, like reach to touch something.
Right, that's correct. So, for example, if, ay, es que yo no alcanzo la crema dental por ahí, está muy alto. Like, I can't get the toothpaste, it's really high up in the cupboard. So could you reach it down for me? In that context, no alcanzo is the correct word to use, right?
Mm-hmm.
Often in English in yoga, we say, reach the hands forward, reach the hands back. What we're trying to say there is stretch or extend. So that's the way that you need to translate it. It's not correct to use the verb alcanzamos las manos hacia atrás. That doesn't work in Spanish, right? What you need to say is extendemos los brazos hacia atrás. Estiramos los brazos hacia atrás. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
What if you're going for a bind, like you're actually trying to like reach your hand to your foot or something?
Yeah, so I would still use estiramos o extendemos. And then what you could say is, si no alcanzas el pie, coloca la mano sobre la espinilla o sobre el tobillo. But I wouldn't use the verb alcanzar to say stretch. I would use it to say, if your hands don't get to your feet, si las manos no alcanzan el pie, entonces las colocamos en la espinilla, en el tobillo, etc., etc. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you need to have be a little bit careful with alcanzar. Okay, con las palmas boca abajo. Now, that to me sounds a little bit odd. Why? Because you're talking about a boca, and your hands hopefully don't have a boca on them, right? So you need to phrase that a different way. Boca abajo is for something that has a boca. So if you're lying your whole torso down on the floor, it's fine to say boca abajo because your mouth literally is facing down. But if it's something that doesn't have a mouth, yeah, then you need to find a different way of phrasing it. So, con las palmas mirando.
Okay.
Yeah? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, a lot. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing that I've also heard is quite often if the palms are facing upwards, people might say con las palmas abiertas al cielo, with the palms open to the sky. Great. Okay. The word rincón. A lovely little word in Spanish. What does it mean? What is a rincón?
A corner?
Yes, but in what sense?
So a rincón is more like a corner on the like inside of a house, and a esquina is more the corner on like if you're going around a corner outside.
Exactly. So a rincón is like a nook, yeah? So like you'd have in the corner of the room, a cozy little nook, un rinconcito, yeah? And then the word rincón is often used like for kind of cozy little bars or restaurants or, you know, those kinds of places in Spanish, rincón del mar, like a little nook by the sea. So we can't really use it to talk about the corners of the mat. As just as Jackie said, the corners on the outside of something are esquinas, yeah? So las esquinas de la colchoneta are the corners of the mat. Okay. Conectamos con los pies a la tierra. Okay, there's a couple of ways of modifying this sentence so that it sounds a little bit better, okay? Conectamos con los pies a la tierra. Can anyone help me? What ways can we modify that sentence to make it sound a bit better?
I guess I would suggest taking out the con for one thing.
Right, so that's one way. The problem is, the way that it's written here, there's no object, right? So one way of giving it an object is simply to take away the word con, yeah? So there you've got, your object is connect the feet. Conectamos los pies con la tierra would be better, yeah? Now, if you wanted to keep the word con in there, then you've got to make it reflexive. Nos conectamos con los pies. Again, it sounds a little bit odd to me, but con la tierra. Like we connect ourselves with the feet, with the earth. I don't like that way so much. I think that the first way was a little bit better. So simply conectamos los pies con la tierra. For me, that sounds most elegant. Okay, final little thing. Colocamos las manos, o digo la mano, hacia abajo en la tierra. What do you think my problem with this sentence is going to be?
I don't think you need hacia abajo.
No.
Right, so if you think about the word in English, place, do you place something downwards ever? Would you say to your friend, oh, it's fine, place it downwards on the table? Sounds kind of odd, doesn't it? Right? So again, there's no direction when we're talking about placing something. When you place something, it stays still. So it would be incorrect to use the word hacia. And if I were you, I'd just get rid of that whole sentence. Colocamos la mano en la tierra. If you wanted to specify where it is, then you would need to use the word underneath. Debajo de, and then you would specify underneath what? Debajo del hombro, for example. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
So, Andrew,
Coming.
I was waiting until you were done. Are you finished with this part of it? I had a question about a phrase that I used,
Please,
possibly incorrectly. And I wanted to say, this was for Camel, so I wanted to have people, they're on their knees, and I said, and I don't know, have no idea whether this is correct. That's why I'm asking. Mantenemos los deditos en el suelo y los talones hacia arriba.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I like that. I mean, I think, so mantenemos los deditos, you've made it diminutive, that's fine.
I like that.
Los deditos en la tierra y los talones mirando hacia arriba. Is that right?
I didn't say mirando, but I just said los talones hacia arriba.
Yeah, I think los talones mirando hacia arriba, o los talones. You could even say sobre la bola del pie. Yeah? So the heels over the ball of the foot. That to me sounds a little bit more technical. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was looking for, because that's something that comes up in a few poses that
to keep the toes tucked and the heel over the top of the ball.
Yeah.
Great.
Good.
Does anybody else have any other questions that came up during their practice, things that they wanted to check with me?
Just how do you describe, like, I always say the knife edge of the foot. How do you describe like the outside of the foot?
Yeah. So quite often when we're talking about the edge, el borde is quite often an edge, right? So los bordes de los pies are the edges of your feet. So if you wanted to talk about the outside edge, el borde exterior del pie, and el borde interior del pie. Yeah?
Okay.
One thing that you often hear teachers say is alineamos los bordes de los pies, like align the edges of your feet. Okay. Anything else?
One more
Please.
question. Like when you talk about spreading your fingers, I think I've heard teachers say something like estrellamos los dedos, or am I hearing that wrong?
Crash. Like if you're in a car and you have an accident, ay, se estrelló, like a plane crash, yeah?
Yeah.
Estrellar means to kind of explode. So that generally you don't want to be using the word estrellar. Right. You're estirar, yeah? So what you can say is estiramos los dedos como una estrella. So stretch your fingers out like a star, or como rayos del sol, like rays of the sun. So there are plenty of ways to talk about that, but estirar or separamos los dedos would be another way of saying it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Anything else? Okay, very good. So let's move on to simplifying transitions. So we wanted to talk a little bit about transitions today. So this presentation today is basically reinforcing what we had a look at last week, okay? So if you remember last week, we had a look at simplifying cues. Well, again, it's very easy to get tied up in the micro movements between one pose and another. So if I think about moving between warrior 2 and triangle, you can get super technical about that, right? You can talk about spreading the toes on the front foot, pressing into the base of the big toe to engage the Achilles tendon, externally rotating the thigh so the knee tracks down the front of the shin. You can then talk about drawing the head of the humerus back into the hip joint and tilting the hips backwards. You can then talk about the length along the side. Oh, you could just go on and on and on and on. Okay? So I think that especially when you're teaching a foreign language, you should always bring students quickly and efficiently into a pose. Because it's really frustrating, especially if you kind of know what you're doing in a yoga class, to wait around for minutes while a teacher just reels off this long list of pre-memorized phrases. Yeah?
Yeah.
I'm quite often thinking that I know we're going into, half moon, let's just get on with it. So make your cues very simple and to the point. And I think that you want to focus on 1 or 2 major movements that can bring students from point A, not paint, but point A to point B. So rely on visual demonstration to fill the gaps. And I know that this isn't ideal, but you've got to be realistic with yourselves, that if you want to give a class that has a certain amount of pace and flow, that you're going to need to get moving, right? And so don't limit yourself with your language. Cue the main things, get people to watch you, and then observe. Once students are in the new pose, Provide further cues to correct any issues that you see. So you might notice as they shift forward from warrior 2 into half moon, that the base of the standing foot is kind of off at an angle. So you might need to bring them out of the half moon, get them to realign their foot and then come back. Or you might see that their standing leg is kind of bent and not very strong. So you might need to get them to engage the standing leg or lift and open the torso. But observe, give that cue based on your observation. So,
can I ask you a quick question?
Please.
So the way that I was taught to teach, or how I usually teach, is I'll say, I mean, if I don't know, the inhale is warrior 2, I'll say exhale, half moon pose, reach 6 inches, and then I'll start cueing. But I always say the breath and then the name of the posture. And I don't always hear that in Spanish. And maybe it's just the classes that I'm choosing online. But a lot of times I'll hear, exhale, bring this hand here, lift your back leg, whatever it is, half moon pose. And so what do you most often hear in Spanish? I always say the name of the pose so people know where we're going. But
yeah, personally, I see benefit in both. I think I really like to hear the name of the pose first sometimes, because again, it kind of gives me permission just to get into the posture and not hang around.
You know where you're going a little bit. Yeah.
So that's on the one hand. On the other hand, if you're taking a more beginner's class, it's perhaps a little bit more common to do some cueing first and then name the pose afterwards, because people don't necessarily know what the pose looks like. So that's probably the reason that you've been taking quite a few beginners classes with the likes of Andrea. And I think her methodology there is that if she were to mention the name of the Sanskrit, first of all, it would just kind of throw people off and confuse them. So she likes to give a few cues first. I would say that there is cueing and then there is cueing. And I've heard teachers who, they give 1, maybe 2 cues and then they name the posture, fine. And then I've had other experiences where the teacher is literally 45 seconds trying to describe all of the micro movements before we hear the posture name. And again, it's just exhausting to listen to that sometimes. So yeah, maybe if you are going to name the posture last, keep it simple. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Right. So again, we're going to come back to that same, this kind of is further to Jackie's question, the technique to build the cues. We think about the simple action. Yeah. Is it bring the weight, or is it root, or is it turn, or is it lift, or is it stretch? Yeah. Think about the main action and then find the verb in Spanish that works best. And then again, build the sentence using breath with verb, object, direction, and posture name. Again, the order of those might be a little bit different. You may or may not choose to cue with the breath depending on what you're doing. So I really liked this. I think this was actually one of the groups in this class that built this series of sentences in last week. And I wanted to come back to it because I thought it was really efficiently done. So they started in Warrior 1, Guerrero Uno. And here are your 3 cues to come into Warrior 1. Colocamos el talón del pie izquierdo en la colchoneta en 45 grados. So place the back foot at 45 degrees. Activamos el abdomen y elevamos el torso. So you've got 2 verbs there, activar and elevar. Yeah. So what are we activating? The core. What are we raising? The torso. Extendemos los brazos hacia el cielo. Raise the arms. At that point, and then this is my addition, you can observe your student and refine. And so, just as an example, what refinements might we want to make in this pose? Traemos las costillas hacia adentro, so bring the ribs in, y rotamos los hombros hacia las orejas, atrás y abajo, conectando omóplatos. Rotate the shoulders towards the ears, back and down, joining the shoulder blades. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Good. So, but I would choose that observation and refinement based on what I see my students doing. So if their ribs and their shoulders in the correct position, then I might want to choose to talk more about the energy in the posture, or finding space in the pose, or some kind of introspective language. From there, we move into eagle. So, what are the main movements to come from warrior into eagle? Well, we need to get the arms sorted out, and we can actually do that in our warrior one pose, if we like. Then we need to bring the weight forwards into the front foot, and then cross the other foot over the top. Okay? Derecho por debajo del brazo izquierdo y juntamos las palmas. Good. So cruzar and juntar are our two verbs. Desplazamos el peso sobre el pie derecho. So bring the weight over the right foot. And finally, llevamos la pierna izquierda hacia adelante. So bring the left foot forwards y la cruzamos sobre la pierna derecha. So cross the leg over the left leg, the right leg, sorry. At that point, we
your
can...
microphone, Andrew.
Hello?
You're bumping your microphone.
Oh, I beg your pardon. So the next thing is to observe and refine. So I thought, well, in eagle, maybe we want to talk about the distribution of the weight. So llevamos el pecho hacia atrás y el peso sobre el talón. Nos sentamos más. Yeah? And finally, to come from eagle into warrior 3, we've got to unwind and then kick back. So mantenemos la posición de los brazos. In fact, this group decided to keep the arms as they were. Descruzamos las piernas, uncross the legs. Extendemos la pierna izquierda hacia atrás y bajamos el torso paralelo a la colchoneta. So extend the left foot back and lower the torso parallel to the mat. At that point, you observe and refine. Cuadramos las caderas al suelo y extendemos más las dos piernas. Questions? So, what I would like you now to do is, in your two groups, you're going to construct some language to make simple and effective transitions between the following postures. So group 1, I think that's Casey and Jackie, are going to do warrior 1 to pyramid to revolved triangle. Group 2, Helen and Sarah, are going to do pigeon from down dog to Ardha Matsyendrasana, which is the half sage twist, to Gomukhasana, cow's face pose. So I'll just pop those in the chat now. Oops. I don't quite know what I pasted in there. Please just ignore what I've just pasted in there. Let's try again, shall we? Ah, yeah. Okay. So that's for Casey and Jackie, sequence 1. And here is sequence 2, which is for Helen and Sarah May. Okay, I'm going to give you around about 15 minutes now to think about the transitions that you can make between these postures. And if you have time, but only if you have time, you can think about the refinements that you might make in each pose. Any questions?
Nope.
All right. So whenever you're ready, you can click on your rooms and get going, and then we'll share the language at the end.
So if we start from the base, the feet.
Yeah, so I'm trying to think. So
I
for
like to
instance,
say colocamos. So
warrior one, yeah. So I'm trying to think of what I would do. So I guess I would begin by kind of straightening our front leg. I'd say, unite your hands overhead and just fold forward, right?
yeah, so we're just talking about the transition. Okay. Yeah, let me just-
Yeah, I mean, I usually transition my hands first, I guess, with that.
Okay, so you'd start with,
Oh, you're right, straightening the leg, straightening the leg.
I guess I would straighten my legs and kind of bring my hands together and then just with a flat back, fold forward.
yeah, so I guess so straightening the extendemos. What's straighten?
Enderezamos
Enderezamos.
la pierna delantera, just say your front leg.
La
And then if we want to say, bring your palms together, juntamos las palmas.
Well, when you come into pyramid pose, I know some people can't even do it, but I always have my palms reversed.
Oh, at your low back?
Yeah, to my low
Right
back. What do you have people do? Like, what's the other?
I guess I can't do that. So I just have them, with their palms up overhead, kind of fold forward with a really flat back. And then they can, bring your hands to the mat if you need the support, or try to bring your forehead to knee. But you're right. I don't do that because I can't do it. So my shoulders.
So
don't
with a long spine or with a straight back?
With a long spine or with a
forward?
straight spine. So what I would do, I say, enderezamos la pierna delantera. So straighten your front leg. Juntamos las palmas. Y con una espalda recta nos doblamos.
Mm-hmm. Did you say con la espalda erecta?
Recta. So
Recta.
With a straight spine or with a flat spine.
La espalda recta.
Nos doblamos. Then I mean, and again, everyone teaches this differently, but since I don't do it with my hands behind my, I can't demonstrate that, so I don't do it. I would say, just to deepen, an option to bring your hands to the mat, option to, micro bend your front knee, and then keep your lower ribs and abdominal pulled up and in. So, I mean, those would be like the refinement cues that I would use for something like that.
Mm-hmm.
If we want to do that.
And then from pyramid, we do, what was after pyramid?
Revolve triangle.
Revolved. Okay. Okay, so yeah, those are three directions. Enderezamos la pierna adelante, juntamos las palmas con la espalda recta, nos doblamos.
And then I guess from pyramid, you'd have to come back up, right? Would you come back up, or how would I have to think about how to do that?
Yeah, you would have to come back up and then bend that front leg, right? If we're doing
for revolve triangle.
Oh, revolve triangle.
I guess you could just sort of, maybe I would come up halfway, and then place your, let's see, if you had your right leg forward, come up maybe halfway. I have to feel.
Like you have to go into triangle before you do the reverse. I never do. Feel like I never do that.
Yeah. So I guess I'm trying to think of just three easy cues to go from one to the other.
if you're already down, you would find placement for your hands because your feet
Yeah.
don't necessarily have. They could get wider. I mean, if you have to, but your feet don't necessarily have to move.
Right.
So you would place the you could say the. I mean, it depends because before we just said front foot, so it depends on which hand. But you can
Right.
find it for that front hand. But if you're doing reverse, we'll reverse.
Reverse. So I mean, if your right foot was front, you take your left hand to the outside of your right foot.
Yeah, so technically it's like twisting triangle. That's what
Yeah.
I.
Yeah.
So yeah, it would be the opposite hand. Somehow we need to talk about which hand.
So maybe let's just assume our right foot is forward, just for the sake of doing this. So that we'd want to, place our left hand to the outside of the right foot. I'm just going to write that in English. Place left hand to outside of right foot.
And then stretch the right arm or the opposite arm up to the sky. And then we have to rotate the torso. Open the chest or rotate the torso to get that spinal twist.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, it's just kind of more about details after that, I guess.
Yeah, just to keep it simple to get into the posture. So I like, okay, so I guess I would begin, I mean, if you're in the, pyramid, kind of lifting up halfway on the inhale, then exhale, place your right hand or your left hand to the outside of your right foot.
Mm-hmm.
Inhale, reach your left or rotate your torso and reach your left arm, left hand to the sky.
So would you say if you're saying place, would you say colocamos? Do you like to start with that?
Yeah, colocamos.
La mano izquierdo.
La mano izquierdo.
On the outside would be
Afuera.
yeah, outwards. Yeah, hacia afuera.
I would just say afuera. Colocamos la mano afuera del pie derecho. So to the outside of your right foot.
That sounds good. So afuera el pie derecho.
Yes, because that's the one in front, right?
Yeah. And then
I like rotamos el torso. I like rotating the torso first and then reaching towards the sky.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So rotamos el torso y elevamos la mano izquierda al cielo. La mano izquierda.
We could say rotamos el torso y, las costillas. There's so many things to rotate. So I guess torso is the easiest. Yeah.
Maybe just to begin with, and then, there's the refinement cues of, there's refinement cues there that we could use to get deeper.
So rotamos el torso, and then for reach, would you say reach or stretch the?
I guess I just say elevamos la mano izquierda al cielo. So just lift your left hand to the sky.
Elevamos. Okay.
place your left foot outside your right thigh. I think.
Okay, so that would be that would be one instruction. So place, I would
Yes.
say, movemos la rodilla izquierda a la derecha de la carrera derecha.
Okay, say that again, that whole.
Okay. Movemos la rodilla izquierda a la derecha de la carrera derecha. So
I
you're
would
taking,
say, because you're saying move your right knee outside your right hip.
can you say traemos rather than moving it? Bring it?
Well, I can't really get like a visual on that. I would say something like place your left foot outside your right thigh.
Oh, so that's a different one. Okay. Traemos los pierna izquierda.
Yeah, or pie.
Pie, sorry, it's the foot, not the leg. Sorry. Pie izquierda. Outside is dentro is inside. Pardon me?
I would say afuera de el muslo derecho.
Okay, does that get us there?
So now we have like the left leg crossed over the right. And so now we have to do like a hug and a twist.
There is a word for hug.
Um,
Hug your knee.
something like embrazamos.
Yeah.
Embrazamos, I think.
Okay, la rodilla. So you're, which knee are you?
Yeah, izquierda.
Izquierda. I gotta clean this up, but with what?
Oh, con el brazo derecho.
Okay, so you've got your knee hug. Now what do you do with the other hand? Legs
Well, yeah.
you got the legs
Yeah.
low. You
I
gotta put,
feel like we're getting into so much detail, but maybe we need it.
it doesn't actually matter where that hand is. It could just go, just place the gun. And the other hand is on the ground.
Or you could just say y giramos hacia la izquierda, or
Yeah.
just we twist to the left.
Keep it simple. I think that's for
I know.
Andrew. Giramos la columna. Turn your spine. La izquierda. We should go back to this.
Hacia la izquierda. Yeah, I mean, we have like 10 steps here. So like, okay, so we said lift your torso. We said sit towards your left hip. Bring your right leg in front. Put your left foot outside your right thigh. And we could just say like, we could just say twist, I mean, if we wanted to. We already have it, but I think we could just say
Well,
twist.
yeah, well, no, you can have you don't want to leave out as embrazamos la rodilla.
Yeah. Or you could say giramos y embrazamos la rodilla izquierda.
Yeah. Giramos la I think I'd put the twist at the end. Y giramos.
Yeah.
Or I think that nos giramos. Okay.
Yeah. Let's leave it at that. That's
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah. Well, we got rid of one step. We're halfway to
Almost. We almost got there.
Okay, so I wanted to spend the last few minutes having a little look at what Sarah and Helen were doing, because I think that it's a particularly challenging sequence. I know, because I love teaching this sequence in English sometimes, and yeah, there's a lot going on. So we're in downward facing dog, and we want to come forwards into pigeon. So let's start with you, Sarah. What were some of the main movements that you identified from down dog to pigeon? And I think you might need to unmute yourself.
So llevamos la rodilla izquierda
So
detrás.
let's just start just in English for now.
Okay.
I beg your pardon. Sorry to interrupt. Yeah.
Left knee behind left wrist.
Mm-hmm.
And then the left shin towards parallel to the top of your mat.
Okay.
And then we said lower the hips, extend your back leg, and then bring your chest to the ground.
Okay. So there's a lot going on there. Right.
Oh,
Let's think about how we can simplify. And again, remember that you're going to be modeling this like visually for people, okay? The other thing I think with pigeon is a lot of people have different kind of preferences for the angle of their front leg. So I would tend to leave out talking about bringing the leg parallel because it's not something that's available to everyone. So I think we can all agree though that we need to bring the right leg forward. So let's assume that we're going to bring the right leg forwards. What verb in Spanish is bring?
Llevar.
That's to take away.
Try it.
Right. So let's put that in the we form. Traemos. Good. Now, what are we going to talk about? Maybe the right knee towards the right wrist. Yeah? So what's the word for right knee, Sarah?
La rodilla derecha.
Mm-hmm. And what's the word for towards?
Hacia.
Hacia. Good. So traemos la rodilla derecha hacia, and then we want to talk about the right wrist.
La muñeca derecha.
Perfect. Okay. And then we could talk about placing the shin on the floor. Yeah? So, what's the verb for to place or to put or to lower? Your choice.
Colocar.
Colocar or bajamos the shin.
Espinilla.
La espinilla.
La espinilla.
Al mat. Easy, no? So there we've dealt with the first leg, yeah? The back leg's already in an extended position, so we don't really need to talk about that. What we could talk about now is creating length through the torso and lowering the chest. So there are two verbs there. What are the two verbs that I'm going to need?
Length would be alargar.
Good, nice. So alargamos. What are we going to lengthen?
La columna.
Good. Alargamos la columna. And then what's the word for to descend?
Bajamos.
Bajamos. We've already used bajamos, so let's find a synonym.
Descendemos.
Descendemos. Now, what are we going to descender?
Las carreras.
They're already It's your chest that you're bringing down.
Yeah,
or-
it's the chest that we're going to be focusing on. So, descendemos el pecho.
So Andrew, you don't think that it's necessary to tell them where to put their arms?
So that's again, if they're watching you, they should probably have a pretty good idea of where to put the arms. Yeah, it's personal preference as well. So this is the point in which we observe, right? Yeah. So at that point, Helen, you might want to say, "Ooh, everybody's got their arms in a funny position." So you might want to say, "Extendemos los brazos hacia adelante," for example. Or you could get them to make a pillow shape or, you know, whatever it is that you want to get out of that posture. So there, we've given two very, very simple cues combined with this kind of very visual demonstration that we're making. Traemos la rodilla derecha hacia la muñeca derecha y bajamos la espinilla al mat. Alargamos la columna. And you could even use the in-breath there. Inhalamos, alargamos la columna y exhalamos. Might even get rid of that E. Exhalamos y descendemos el pecho. Yeah. Reasonably straightforward, huh? Okay. This one, Ardha Matsyendrasana, is a little bit more complicated, yeah? So we are going to need more than 2 cues for this one. Now, Helen, what would be your main movements between pigeon and Ardha Matsyendrasana?
You got to get the back leg in front of you.
Yep, that's one. Good. What else?
Well, you're getting the back leg in front of you and you're making it a twist. Are the two main things that are happening.
So let's have a think about this.
First, you have to sit up.
Yeah. So
Yes.
I'm going to get people to sit up first of all.
We tried subimos el torso.
Nice. Yeah, subimos el torso. So let's just put that straight in there. Good. Okay, so we've raised the torso. Now, for me, I usually have to simultaneously lower, or just after that, lower the hip onto the floor, right? Because when you're in pigeon pose, the right hip is unless you're extremely lifted.
Andrew, we can't hear you.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So, unless you're extremely flexible, your right hip is probably lifted some ways off the mat. So, I'm also going to add that in there. Y bajamos la cadera derecha al mat. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, the next thing that Helen was talking about was bringing the left leg forwards and then placing the foot outside the knee. So those for me are the 2 main actions that come next, okay? So how can I say bring the left leg forwards?
Traemos la pierna, well, we had la pierna izquierda because of the direction we were going, afuera del muslo derecho.
So I would say it like this. Traemos la pierna izquierda adelante. So bring the left leg forwards, E. And now I'm going to talk about placing the foot, yeah? So we've talked about the whole leg, now we're going to move to the foot. E, what's the verb for to place?
Colocamos.
Colocamos, el pie. And where do we place the foot?
Afuera del muslo.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not afuera because we're using it here as an adverb. It's fuera de.
Oh.
Fuera del muslo derecho. Okay, so the final little key here for me is the twist. Yeah?
Mhm. Yeah, so we had embrazamos la rodilla izquierda con el brazo derecho y nos giramos.
Nice. Why don't we put that then? I would add one small step, which is to inhale and raise the arms first. Okay? So inhalamos, subimos los brazos. Okay, exhalamos. And then what was your phrase there, Helen?
Embrazamos la rodilla izquierda con el brazo derecho y nos giramos.
So, exhalamos, abrazamos la rodilla izquierda con el brazo derecho.
We were twisting the other way, so it would be rodilla derecho.
So let me think. It's because we have the right leg forwards, it's the left knee and right forearm.
Okay.
Yeah? Because your right leg was in pigeon and you brought the left leg forward, so the left leg is currently on top. And that's the one that we're embracing. So it's abrazamos la rodilla izquierda con el brazo derecho y nos giramos. And voila, we've made what's kind of possibly a very, very complicated series of movements into 3 phrases. Subimos el torso y bajamos la cadera derecha al mat. Traemos la pierna izquierda adelante y colocamos el pie fuera del muslo derecho. Inhalamos, subimos los brazos. Exhalamos, abrazamos la rodilla izquierda con el brazo derecho y nos giramos. Voila. Easy, no?
Easy.
All right. So, what are you going to do for homework? I would like you all to extend your sequences to include a few more postures. So for Jackie and who was Jackie working with?
Casey.
Casey, yes. I would like you to extend your standing sequence by a few more postures and have something to teach for next time. For Sarah and Helen, I'd like you to extend your seated sequence. Yeah. And we'll do a bit more practicing teaching.
You mean extend this sequence that we just did right here?
I would recommend it because you already have a couple of postures there and you can just build on what you've already done.
For Jackie and I, like, are you meaning the sequence we were teaching at the beginning?
No, the sequence that you've just been working on right now. So for you, it was Warrior 1, Pyramid, and Revolve Triangle. So
if we already have 3 postures,
yeah.
What are how many more do we add up to that?
Totally up to you. And it doesn't have to be after, it could also be before. So you might have, down dog, you might have wild thing, you might have side plank, you might have, it's totally up to you. From Revolve Triangle, you can go into Warrior 3, you can step forwards into Uttanasana. Just use your own sequencing and build your sequence out a little bit further.
One other question, would you like us to work with the same partner or do you want us to each work independently?
Individually is fine because it might be complicated for some of you to find mutual times to meet. I mean, by all means, if you do want to contact one another and work on these things together, you're most welcome. But if that's not possible, then yeah, in your own time. Okay, any questions to finish off today's class? Yeah, I think you're all doing, I just want to say that I was really impressed by the teaching that you were all doing in the beginning. I think that it's so much clearer how you're all leading people through. And there's a real sense of flow to your sequences now, which is really nice to see. A sense of really being able to move people with a lot more ease between one posture and the next. So congratulations. Keep up all of the hard work. Keep on joining Andrea's class. So there's another one tomorrow evening at 6:30. and I will see you all soon.
Great. Thank you, Andrew.
My pleasure. See you all.
Okay.
Have a lovely week.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
And you're going to send this thing along? I'm over
Yes.
here at that. So,
Yeah. Okay. Bye for now.
bye-bye for now.